Welcome to ResponseABLE Parenting, the podcast that shows you how to parent in alignment to your emotions, needs, and goals versus your programming, bad advice, and let's face it, outdated strategies that just don't work. You'll get in the trenches support on nervous system and emotional regulation, critical mindset shifts, stronger communication strategies, and more. In this podcast, you'll gain transformational tools that take you from reacting to every frustration to responding with clarity, regulation, and finally setting the example you desire for your kids. I'm Becky Jennings, your new parenting coach, and this is the ResponseABLE Parenting podcast. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. I am so excited. I have a guest. Guest days are always the best because I don't have to do the majority of the talking, and we get to learn from another person who has tremendous expertise, and that is really what we're all about here. So welcome, Braxton Storm. Braxton is a licensed clinical social worker and founder of Calm the Storm, LLC. It's a private practice in Nevada where he helps parents and teens move from disconnection to understanding. He works with attachment science, neuroscience, I'm assuming nervous system science too, which is where we connected on this, and his own experience as a husband and father. Braxton teaches families how to replace power struggles with emotional connection and mutual respect. Braxton has spoken at several conferences. He creates connection-based parenting resources and shares content and social media that inspires thousands of parents to show up with curiosity instead of control. Braxton, you're speaking my language. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's awesome to get to talk to you.
I love it. So tell me, how did you find your way into social work?
Yeah, great question. So as a kid, I grew up in the foster care system and relative placement system, meaning I grew up in California and I was taken away from my parents. My dad kind of wasn't there really at all. And my mom had some addiction issues. And so I was placed in foster care and with my grandma quite a few times. And they would, when I went to my family, like my grandma and my aunt and uncle, they would always say, "You're out going on vacation." I thought that was funny now looking back. But anyways, I was there in foster care for about 10 years and between my aunt and uncle as well and my grandma. And as a result of that, I just kind of grew with this desire to want to help people, in specific children and teenagers, and wanting to help them to feel connected to their caregivers. And so that kind of drew me into the helping profession. I didn't always want to do therapy. That came later as a mentor asked me to join a session, and I really enjoyed it. And so I pursued it after that. But that's kind of what got me into the field.
Yeah. Was connection-focused parenting always your go-to? Like when you became a father, what did you notice that there were patterns that you did not want to fall into, but they were so easy to fall into?
I still do. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
This is a lifelong journey, I think, for most of us. But I did not always, obviously, terminology-wise and education, that came later, right? But no, to answer your question, I didn't always know what that looked like. I just knew that I wanted it, right? I wanted to feel connected. I wanted my kids to feel safe, and I wanted to feel safe with them. And I didn't know how to do that until obviously I gained some skills, and I have done so much research and helping my clients and myself as a father as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we come to parenting with this innate desire to have it be this loving, connection-filled, we're there for them. We're their support. We're their guide. We have this beautiful vision. I was like, it's going to be so great. We'll push them on the swing. They'll come to me for everything. We just, in our head, we paint this beautiful picture. And then when we're getting screamed at, or when somebody's resisting the no that we say, or they're actually not getting their shoes on for the 50th time that we've asked them, and we are now 10 minutes late to school, it's so easy to fall back into this authoritarian power over response system. It's just, and it comes out so quick. I'm
Yes.
curious, was there a moment that you realized things needed to shift, or was it a gradual thing over time that helped you get to this amazing place you're at now?
Well, so I think that's an interesting question. I was a therapist before I was a parent, and so maybe that helped me, or maybe it hasn't. I don't know, but that I recognize, I think, primarily with my clients that I would bring. So at first, I worked for an agency who we specialized in working with kids, toddlers, and little kids and teenagers. And so I bring these kids in, and I'd work with them. And I wasn't really trained necessarily to work with the parents. And so I teach these kids all these skills, and we work through trauma, and we do all these amazing things that I thought were really helping them. And I'd send them off, and then after a few sessions, the parents would come back, or the caregivers or caseworkers, and like, you know what, like they're just not making a lot of progress, so we're gonna go somewhere else. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? Right? Like I really think I'm helping these kids. What am I missing? And then I came across the work of Gabor Mate. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him,
Oh, yes.
but he is someone that I idolize. I think he's and Dan Siegel. Both of them are really spot on
Incredible
with
people. Yeah.
how I incorporate my work. But they focused primarily on the parents and
Mm.
helping the parents to heal themselves, and then like then work on the kids. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe this is something that I need to try. And so I uh, would bring in the parents first. I'd start talking to them and create a treatment plan for them and work through like nervous system issues or emotion regulation, or being able to work through trauma if necessary, and then work with the kids and then work with them together.
Yeah.
And as a result of that sequence, you start to see exponential growth, right? And the reason is because they feel connected. They feel connected to self. They understand themselves, and it's much easier to do the connection with someone else when you understand who you are and what's going on within you.
Absolutely. We don't think about it on a conscious level, but our nervous system thinks about this, like overwhelming sounds, repetitive noises, too many things on our plate at one time. Like all of these things build into our nervous system, and our nervous system is sending us stress signals. It's sending us these cues to be like, you're getting to the point where you're going to flip. But we don't listen to that. We just keep white knuckling and powering through. And then ultimately we explode. And it's usually on our kids because A, they're right in front of us. B, they've been the one, quote unquote, who did all this stuff to make us frustrated. So it's easy to reprimand them, even though it's been our nervous system that's sending us signals this whole time being like, I don't feel safe. I don't feel comfortable. This isn't great. And our nervous system, as you know, is so stupid. It thinks that a discomfort is also danger, but it's also highly refined. It's like the stupidest, smartest thing in our entire body.
100%.
It sends us all this incredible data that we just don't listen to. So that's where the smart side is, but it also thinks every possible thing is danger, not just discomfort. Which it takes a practice to start to listen to that, so you can actually slow yourself down and do the work that you need to do to feel safe inside, so that you're able to lead with that connection. Because we can't connect if we feel like the person in front of us is in fact the threat.
That's right. Right.
Yeah. So tell me, is there like a particular pattern or dynamic that you find parents come to you and you're like, oh, I've seen this before. I've seen this before. Is there like kind of like a standard pattern you see?
Yeah, I would say with 99% of the parents that I work with, and this is, it's just brutally honest, right? Most parents are very uncomfortable being vulnerable. And kind of alluding to what you're talking about, right? When we have to admit that we can't handle it, right? When we need to take a break, especially with dads, there's that, apart from being dangerous to us, it's almost a sign of weakness, right? And so most of the time when I have a mom and a dad, or parents come in, one of the primary issues is that we're just not able to understand ourselves, and we're not really sure how to break through that, right? We're kind of in this blame game, like you said, where it's like, here's my kid, hopefully you can fix them, and send them off. And it's so funny. Every call that I get, they'll ask me like, hey, okay, like what do you do, blah blah blah, whatever. And I'll say, okay, I'll see you and your spouse at the first session. And they're like, wait, I thought you were going to help my teenager or whatever. And I'm like, I totally am, right? And we're going to start with you. And it always catches them off guard, but I find that that's the typical dynamic, is they're just scared, right? But they really want to feel safe. They want to feel connected. And they just haven't learned how to do that.
Yeah. It's almost like when we lead with, can you please help my child? It's
Yeah.
it's almost like saying under the surface, it's like my child needs to change in order for me to feel better.
Yes. Yeah.
And you need to switch that. It's like I need to change
So my
in
kid
order for
can
me to feel better. And then my child will start to model what I'm doing.
right. 100%.
Yeah, it's like it's the trickle down effect in the right way.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have a great point there, right? You can do this the wrong way too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what would be like the biggest barrier that you find with dads specifically into becoming more vulnerable and entering in this connection-based parenting space?
Yeah. So if you look at generationally, previous generations, this generation right now, and it's going through a different dynamic, but previous generations, baby boomers, things like that, they didn't learn the language of emotion, right? They learned the language of behavior, right? So if you behave well, you must be well. I hear a lot of stories of parents, kids I work with, or young adults who say, well, my mom and dad were always proud of me. They would always boast to their friends when I got straight A's, or my hair was done, or I looked pretty, or I was, the star on the sports team.
Yep.
But there wasn't much talk about like, hey, how are you feeling? What's going on? How are you, what emotions are you experiencing? And so I would say for dads, the main thing that I see is that we don't know how to talk about emotion. And because we don't know how to talk about it, doesn't mean we don't feel it, but we don't know how to put words to it. And so our body holds on to that. And when we don't express it verbally, then it doesn't really go anywhere, right? You can hit stuff, you can throw stuff, but the emotion stays, right? But there's something about being able to express yourself in a healthy way that builds connection. And when you build connection, that emotional need to hold on to stuff isn't there, right? We can share and we can collaborate and all that. And dads in particular just don't have that skill most of the time.
Yeah. Something as I was going through my training, one of the biggest things that we always touched on, and it just came back to it over and over and over again, is like, we have to name it to be able to tame it, right? You have to.
Yeah.
Yes, I know he's the best. You have to name it. It's like, there's a power there when you state it out loud, right? Not only is it vulnerable and it's opening yourself up to that connection, but the power of saying it out loud almost takes the power away from the word, right?
Sure.
It's like if I say, "Oh, I am so angry." It's like, "Okay, I'm angry. Yeah, I am angry." And it gives our actual thinking brain, our logic part of the brain, just a second to be like, wait, what am I actually angry about?
Yeah, there's a little space right there.
A little space. I constantly talk about there's a gap between our feeling and our reaction, right? From that moment. And the larger we build that gap, that window of tolerance, the more effective we'll be. And we do this through naming it, regulating ourselves, all of that. And I just find that even just having my kids say what they are feeling out loud gives them the opportunity to so it's the same thing, right? As if we're talking about what do you need? How do you feel? And we're framing this up in a totally different way. We are building emotional literacy and intelligence that's light years ahead from where we were as kids, right?
Yes.
Just having our kids name it, just having us name it in front of them is such a difference. It's such a difference. How do you find when your parents actually start doing that? What transformations do you see?
In particular with dads and I think moms generally are better at this overall. But with the parents that I see, when they start to do this, they start to come into sessions with curiosity as opposed to judgment. Yeah. And so they might say, I saved the first couple minutes of my session to meet with parents, and instead of oh, well, my daughter did this and did this, they'll say, hey, this is what I experienced. This is what I'm going through. And can you help me with, these particular issues? Which is a stark difference from session one, when it's all right, let's get down to why my daughter needs to change and why am I, all these different things. So they start to get familiar and comfortable with this idea that, hey, we all have emotion. It does start with me. And this is the coolest thing. When we recognize that we're in charge of the emotional climate of our home as parents, and connection is dependent upon our ability to heal, it feels so good, right? When obviously we shame sometimes, and we feel bad when we mess up. But when we do it the right way, we're really trying to connect, that feels so good. And we've been so scared of it for so long, or we didn't know it existed.
Yeah.
But I see a change in that way too, right? It's kind of like we just want more of it. We want to connect. We want our kids to feel connected too.
Yeah.
And it's something that a lot of our parents haven't lived for a long time.
Yeah, it's like if we switch in our head and in our reactive patterns, like the only thing I can control is my reactivity in the moment, which then we can go through this, okay, like name the feeling, and we can work through that. But it's like we have this false sense of control over our children who they're their own independent beings. And yeah, we of course have to like show them the ropes and teach them. We're not like, just do whatever you want to do.
Right.
But we cannot control the way they feel. We cannot control how they're going to respond to something. We can't control their nervous system. The only thing we can control is truly ourselves. And I think when we switch that in our brain, we start to realize how much more control over the moment we have when we're regulated.
Yeah.
It's not we have to power over them and be authoritarian and do all this stuff, which I think is rooted in a lot of fear about how the situation's going to be or how they're going to turn out in 15 years if they're acting like this now, Right. But it's like if we can just slow ourselves down and realize that the whole control lies within ourselves, it really shifts the dynamic in the moment of being like, I'm going to take 90 seconds and I'm going to breathe for these 90 seconds. And my kid might still be clinging to my leg. He might still be screaming. They might still be fighting.
Right.
But I'm going to take control of myself. Then we can actually approach the situation from that logic, from that connected place. And it changes everything. What would you tell parents who say that this is more of like the passive, permissive style parenting, as opposed to, because that's very traditional, right? It's like we have to be in control. We have to be the authoritarian. We have to tell them what to do. This is a different approach because we're appealing to the nervous system. We're appealing to the emotion and connection of the brain and the body.
Right.
But that sounds so permissive, right?
Yeah, it really does. Because we're trained. Sorry to catch you.
No, go.
We're trained to believe that we have to be in control, right? If we're not in control, and we're only trained to do this because our parents did it to us,
Of course.
right? So, well, there's a difference to your question. So authoritarian parenting is like the control base, right? I gotta control everything. It's fear, right? A lot of fear. Authoritative, sometimes we get that confused.
Yes.
With authoritarian.
Yep.
And authoritative is like, I mean, the term is gentle parenting. I just posted a video about this and got a lot of negative feedback. But there's gentle parenting, right? Which is, I call it boundary-filled parenting.
Yeah.
Permissive parenting is letting your kid literally do whatever you want or whatever they want. And you're just kind of doing your own thing, right? You're not really engaged with your kids at all. And that isn't healthy, right? And so we're completely engaged with our kids' lives. We're completely setting the boundaries of what's happening in our home, right? But they're still agents of themselves, able to choose within those boundaries. But we're also living those boundaries ourselves, right? We're engaged in a mutual relationship. And that's what I would suggest is like authoritative parenting or gentle parenting, boundary-filled parenting. It's very engaged, not permissive or passive.
Yeah, it's anything but. I feel like it's actually much better.
Oh, you're sweating. You're sweating, right?
I know. Like, oh my God, how do I get through this?
100%.
Exactly. Yeah. That's probably one of the number one questions you get. Probably the number one question I get is in terms of discipline then. Yeah. In terms of discipline, like how, especially dads, right? This is like the big, like I have to put my foot down. Like I am the, it's escalated to the top, right? I'm here to step in. So in terms of discipline, how do you guide parents to discipline? Which, we know that the secret language of discipline that's to teach, right?
Yeah.
That's the root word, connection, to teach. It's not to actually punish, right? I think those two words have gotten intermingled really. It's been a little bit dangerous intermingling, but the root word is to teach, right? So how do you use this and teach parents? How do you use this to teach and create that boundary system to help them understand that it's not about punishments and consequences, that the traditional approach wasn't nearly as effective as we all thought it was?
Right. So you don't have to look far to recognize that, right? A lot of the parents that I have, especially dads, were in the mode of like, let's just take things away or exert some sort of like capital punishment, right? Like give them a spanking or give them a timeout or whatever. And I actually, in my office, I have a lot of handouts, just research articles about these different traditional, they're punishments, right? Traditional punishments. And there's a difference between punishments and discipline. Discipline, like you said, is to teach. Punishment is to exert some sort of control over. And so one of the best examples I have of a skill or something I try to teach my parents is I had this a while ago. I had a parent come in and say, well, my kid was very disrespectful in class and the teacher started crying and obviously he got written up, etc. And so we took away his Xbox. I was like, awesome. Okay, well, thanks for telling me. What were you trying to teach him? And they were like, well, that there's just consequences for your behavior. I was like, okay, like how long are you taking away the Xbox? Like what's the strategy? And they're like, well, we don't know. Yeah, we're not sure. But we just wanted to like really make him feel bad for what he did. I was like, okay, like that's, it's important for us to feel remorse for what we do.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like, was there a skill taught in this? Right. And they're like, well, I don't really know. And so I was like, well, moving forward, maybe a better approach might be if your child is disrespectful, how about you create an experience where they can connect and be vulnerable with the person that they disrespected. So they're like, oh, I never thought about that. And so we ended up having the child write a letter to the teacher and go to the teacher face to face and read the letter.
Wow.
And let the teacher talk to the student about how that interaction made them feel and let the student talk to them and build a mutual relationship out of respect and connection where they also feel very uncomfortable, right? They're not likely to do that again, but at the same time, they feel connected to, and they built connection. They were vulnerable. They used emotion in a healthy way, and they were able to use a skill, right? Which is really crucial. And
I love that. I love the reframe of, because that's one of the things that I try to focus on too, is like a consequence is not effective unless there's a skill built around that, right? Like, what do you want them to do instead is always a great question, right? So they did that. What would you want them to do instead? Did you show them how to do that, right? Where is that? But also the fact that, I mean, it's an incredible way that you're infusing the skill with the connection too, right? I like that because that's very nuanced and it takes it one step further, right? Because now you're wiring that emotional experience in their brain with a positive outcome versus the shameful outcome or annoying outcome of the fact that they lost their Xbox. Because they're not looking at, I lost my Xbox. It's my parents took that away, right? Now the parent is the person who did something to them, even though they were the original person that messed up. And I love the fact that, like, I would never want to read a letter to my teacher again. Like, I would be so embarrassed, so mortified by that. But at the same time, it's definitely a natural consequence directly related to the offense, right? Yeah. And it's also showing a skill, like we're showing vulnerability and we're able to apologize and repair through that. Like that's so much different. I don't believe the child's behavior would necessarily improve too much with the Xbox being taken away. But with the letter, having to read it in front of the teacher, I'm pretty sure the behavior would be pretty different after that. Yeah. That's a beautiful thing to think about, is like, how can we take the quote unquote natural consequence and build connection into that? That's a huge level up in terms of teaching. I love that. Yeah. It's 2025 and there is more parenting advice than ever before. Yet we're still confused, stuck, and as a result, fall back into yelling, threatening, and punishing in moments that don't require such harsh reactions. Parenting has evolved, and it's time your parenting strategies do too. Welcome to REWIRE with ResponseABLE Parenting. This is where you get the support you're looking for so you can make fast, positive, and long-term change in your household. Inside this complete parenting system, you'll get a done-for-you roadmap that teaches you how to understand why you get so triggered, how to support both yourself and your child in the heat of the moment so you can react less and respond in a way that connects you versus creates more ruptures. You will quickly create a new nervous system baseline, allowing you to access more regulated and effective communication so that you can set and hold boundaries without meltdowns, reduce power struggle nightmares, and truly dial down the temperature that spikes every day. And if you're like me, you crave instant results and personalized feedback. Now you can join REWIRE Level Up and have 6 months of weekly coaching calls. In these calls, we work together on your specific challenges and we hyperspeed your rewiring process. This means you see faster changes in your home, which means relief sooner. This is your complete program to rewire your parenting brain so that your whole family can finally exhale. Join REWIRE today and start feeling relief as early as tonight.
Hey, you kind of alluded to this, like moving from shame to guilt. Guilt is an important emotion for all of us to feel because it's based on our behavior, not on our identity. But if you take away an Xbox, usually accompanied with the taking away of something or some sort of punishment, there's a lot of you statements, right? You did this, you're wrong, you need to change, you need whatever, right? But when you let a natural consequence just kind of unfold based on a skill, it's all based on behavior, right? It's like, hey, I recognize that I behaved this way. It's not congruent with who I am. And this is what I need to do to change. And I'm sorry, right? For the behavior. And there's a very distinct difference. And a lot of parents tend to not recognize that, but there is, right? And I mean, all you have to do is like stay in a quiet room for like 10 minutes and listen to your inner critic. And that inner critic came from somewhere, right? And it's usually based on your identity and what people or experiences have taught you about who you are, not about how you behaved.
Yeah, that's huge. I always say that guilt is that like alert bell that you've gone outside of your value system, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that you should like internalize and hold on to and just berate yourself and use as evidence to, perpetuate that negative storyline. But it's just like, oh, I got to get back in line with my values, right?
100%.
Yeah. I know you have a client coming up in just a few minutes. Is there any final words that you'd like to share or like the first step a parent can take to starting this connection parenting journey?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think in today's world, there are so many options, right? I don't know if there's one particular way, but what I found at most parents who come into my office are ones who have for years looked on social media or kind of like, behind closed doors, searched like, I'm desperate. I don't know what to do. This doesn't feel right. And that's probably a good way to start, right? Is like getting out there and just seeing what is available and deciding what feels best to you. And then obviously, reaching out and getting support, whether it's from a coach or a therapist or someone else. Social media can only take you so far. So it's not individualized. Yeah. So you need to step into the arena a little bit and get uncomfortable. I always tell clients, if you didn't leave today uncomfortable, then we didn't do a good job. And although social media is sometimes very helpful, it's not individualized, and it's important for them to get that individualized help, which is just the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. Social media is kind of like the alert to be like, oh, I do feel that.
There's a role. Yeah.
I should probably do something about that. Awesome. Yeah. Well, where can people find you, Braxton?
So on my website, braxtonstorm.com, I have all of my information there. I have a lot of handouts and different things. And then also you can schedule coaching sessions or therapy sessions depending on where you are. And then social media at Braxton Storm on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, all the things. So.
Well, thank you for joining me. This was a wonderful conversation. I'm sure many parents are taking a lot away from this. So I appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you, Becky, for having me on.
Thank you for listening to the ResponseABLE Parenting podcast. If you like what you heard, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. If you know someone who would benefit from this podcast, I'd be honored if you'd share this episode with them. Until next time, know that you are enough, you are capable, you've made it through all of your hardest days, and we will keep growing on this parenting journey together. This podcast was produced by Kim Kelty and myself, Mackie Jennings, and edited by the Kelty Method, Branding and Podcasting.